I'm Father Dwight Longenecker, and this is the third episode in my series, Myths, Monsters, and the Mysteries. In the first two episodes, I spoke about myth and how it relates to us and how it relates to us as individuals, and also how that impacts our culture. First of all, though, I'd like to explain that the way the emotional aspect of myth really impacts us and touches us is that we go on a journey with the hero. Now, Joseph Campbell, who wrote Hero with a Thousand Faces, is really good at explaining how all this works. And when we go to see a movie, when we read a book, when we hear a story being told, when we get involved in the story with the hero, we are going on the journey with them. They go on a quest, they go on a journey of discovery, they go on a journey and an adventure to try to accomplish some great goal. And as they do this, we bond with them, we connect with them, we have empathy with them. And good storytellers, good script writers, and good writers know how to create a hero who demands our empathy. And very often, and I'll go into this in more detail later, but very often it'll be a child who's lost, or an orphan, or someone like that who has a deep wound, and we identify with them, and our heart opens to them, and we connect with them. We connect with their fears and their joys and their hopes and their dreams, and we go on this journey with them. Now, as we go on that journey, what happens is we begin to bond with the hero, and at a very deep level, at an emotional level, on a psychic level, we connect with them. And as they go on this journey, they experience different conflicts, and we experience the conflicts with them. We experience their emotions, most importantly. As they experience fear in facing a monster, as in facing some danger, we experience the fear. As they experience uncertainty and doubt, we experience the feelings of uncertainty and doubt. Now, as a priest, what really interests me is that we also go on a journey with the hero, which is a moral journey. When they're facing evil, when they're facing conflict, the hero invariably has to make moral choices. Will I take a risk of this innocent person's life in order to defeat the bad guy, or must I actually let that innocent person take the bullet so that I can get the bad guy? There's all sorts of different levels of excruciating moral choices, and the more the excitement level is raised in the story, the more that moral choice also becomes raised. Now, the story that I like telling that shows how this happens is well known to most people. It's the climax scene of the first Star Wars film. You might remember Luke Skywalker is flying his jet fighter down the canal on the Death Star, and he has to drop a bomb down the ventilation chute and blow up the Death Star from the inside. And he has three chances, and he's gone down twice already and missed. And he's relying on his autopilot. He's coming in, and the autopilot's trying to tell him where to drop the bomb. He's being pursued by the enemy. Most importantly, being pursued by Darth Vader himself in his own jet fighter. And Darth Vader's coming behind it, and Luke's flying down, and he comes down into the Death Star, and he hears a voice which says, "Luke, use the Force. Use the Force, Luke." And of course, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, his mentor, who has been teaching him in the spiritual ways of the Jedi and so forth. And he struggles to push away his technology, his autopilot, and come down and go with the Force. And he drops the bomb, fires the bomb, and drops down the ventilation chute and blows up the Death Star. And my screenwriting teacher said he saw this film when it first came out in a big cinema in London, and it was 3,000 people in this cinema. And he said at that point, when Luke dropped the bomb down the ventilation shaft, he said 3,000 people stood up and cheered. This was when Star Wars was new, and it was an amazing movie. It was a phenomenon. It was a huge hit. And my screenwriting teacher, a guy called Bart, said, at that point, 3,000 people not only cheered for Luke destroying the Death Star, they knew he was going to destroy the Death Star one way or another. They cheered because Luke made a moral choice to do the right thing, and they cheered because he went with the Force. And at that point, 3,000 people, at the depth of their being, said, "I believe there's such a thing as good and evil in the world, I believe that there is a force for good and a force for evil. I believe that I could make a spiritual choice in favor of what's good. Now, they made a moral choice at that point. They made a very important choice in their life about the affirmation of good and evil, about doing something about it. No, they didn't leave the movie and say to their partner, you know, at the climax of that movie, I had a profound metaphysical experience. No, they didn't. That's the power of it. It functioned at such a deep level. And this is the power of stories, the power of myth, to be able to do this in our lives. Now, the last thing I'd like to point out is that we're used to this happening in stories that are fictional, movies that are fictional, stories that are made up. And in fact, this is nothing new. This idea of catharsis, of identifying with the hero and going through their emotional struggle and feeling their pain and feeling their joys and sorrows, this was all laid out, of course, by the ancient Greeks when they were writing on drama and the power of drama. So this is nothing new, but it is something which is just as powerful in our world today as it's ever been. Now, what really fascinates me, and to take this one step further, is that I believe that these stories operate on us not only as fictional stories, but there are also true myths. There are myths, stories that take place in our lives that have this same impact on us, and they operate on these same levels of political and relational and emotional and spiritual and so forth, just like the fictional stories do, but they really happened. And so, to illustrate my point, I'm going to tell you another story, and that is the story of my grandfather's death. My grandfather, I never knew him because he died when my mom was 16. And my mom and her mother, my grandmother, were down at the local farmer's market, and where they had a bake stall where they sold some baked cakes and stuff to make extra money. This was in, I think, 1943, just in the 1940s, in Pennsylvania. And my grandfather was walking down to the market with his two sons, my uncles, who were then age, I think, 12 and 10. And it was a winter day just the week before Christmas. And a coal truck came along and hit an icy patch and started to slide towards the boys. And my grandfather ran forward and pushed them out of the way, but the truck crushed him instead. And some bystanders picked up my grandfather's broken body and put it in the back of a car and took it to the hospital. This was the day before they knew to call emergency services, or indeed there was an ambulance to come and take them away. When they did that, his fractured ribs punctured his internal organs, and he was bleeding internally. There was nothing they could do. The week before Christmas, they were already impoverished by the Great Depression. My grandmother went to the hospital to see him in his last hours. He was a good Christian man. He woke up and came out of the pain he was in, and he looked at her, and I think they said a prayer together, and then he looked up in the corner of the room and he said, "Can't you see them, Esther? They're so beautiful. They're so beautiful." And then he passed to the other side. Well, whenever I tell this story, people are deeply moved. Here's a story which is true, that really happened, but it functions on us and with us like myth. We go on the journey, we experience the emotions, we experience the impression of what really happened, and certain truths are unlocked. We come away from the story with truths about self-sacrifice and a father's love for his children, truths, if we're believers, about heaven and hell. Did Grandpa see the angels before he crossed over to the other side? We don't know. But all of these truths are brought home to us in one big package, which is the story. And therefore, true stories can function with us and on us that are true, that really happened. And I'm going to be talking more about this later, but this is one of the things which one of my heroes, C.S. Lewis, experienced. He was an atheist, and he got to the point where he was very interested in myth and in stories and literature. He was a professor of literature. And he came to the understanding, the realization that the Christian story, the story of Jesus, the story of the Old Testament characters, and the whole great saga of the Judeo-Christian religion was actually communicating with mankind in the same way that these myths do, except with the fact that they really happened. This is one of the things which makes the Christian faith actually really exciting for me. To think that these stories that we take for granted in the Bible and down through Christian history are things that really happened, but they still function on us and with us in this powerful mythic way to change us and to bring us new enlightenment and to see things in a new and a fresh way. Well, next time I'm going to be talking about monsters and how they tie in and how they connect with this whole mythical understanding of reality. So I hope you'll stay tuned. I hope you'll also go over to my blog, dwightlongenecker.com, where you can find some of my writings. One of the books I've written about this connection between story and Christianity is called The Romance of Religion, and you can find that on my bookstore if you're interested in following it up. Thanks for watching.